Welcome everybody, and a special welcome to Christophe Deloire, Secretary General of Reporters Without Borders. Your organization is well known for your work and campaigning for freedom of information, and especially for producing the Freedom Index. So let me start. You publish this index, very important index, every year. And how would you say the state of freedom of information is in the world today?
The state of freedom of expression could be considered as really better than a few years ago, thanks to the web. But if we consider freedom of opinion, and freedom of opinion which is based on factual truth, which is based on the right to information, to reliable information. And we consider that there is such a right. And such a right is based on the capacity for journalists, considering that journalism is composed by your rights and duties. So the capacity of journalists to exercise their work properly. This situation is really worrying. And when we published recently our World Press Freedom Index, in April, we mentioned that we consider that the 10 years to come will be a decisive decade for journalism, because there are many crises that affect the future of journalism. And all those crises are amplified by the COVID-19 crisis.
And your index, it's very positive for us Norwegians, maybe. You have put us on top for, I think it's the third or fourth year in a row. And the
Congratulations for this. Congratulations for this.
And the other Nordic countries are also on top of the list. Why do we find the Nordic countries, all of them, on top of the list?
If you have a look at a series of criteria that are the basis of the World Press Freedom Index: media independence, level of exactions, of violations of press freedom, legal framework. You can notice that in Nordic countries, those countries are really at the top on all those levels. Regarding Norway, for years, your country, and really congratulations for this, has rested permanently in the upper echelons in the rankings of democracy and freedom of expression and press freedom. Even if you have in your country a sort of high level of concentration of media ownership as compared with a lot of countries, but you have, more than in other countries, safeguards that allow journalists to be trusted third parties for the society. One could consider it is not perfect. A commission for further improvement was recently created. We know that even in Norway, some threats on the social networks or pressure can sometimes lead to self-censorship. But as compared with other, even with other countries on the European continent, we have to say that the respect for the journalistic ideals is higher than in other countries. And it's true for violences, the fact that you don't have, or as compared with other countries, violences against journalists. Of course, no journalist in jail or killed, but even you do not have what we have in France, a high level of violences against journalists during demonstrations, or you do not have politicians or a lot of politicians that call on people to hate journalists or things like this. And on the other side, so this is about violations of press freedom, but you do not have also legal or through ownership pressure on the media
Mm.
So no control of news and information in this respect. So that's why you are so high in the World Press Freedom Index.
Thank you for that. At the other end, at the bottom, we find North Korea, Turkmenistan, Eritrea, and China. What makes these countries the worst one regarding to press freedom?
In North Korea, it's even difficult to imagine to be a journalist. We cannot say that there are or there were in the past people that are worthy of the name of journalism, of journalists. In Eritrea, there were some in the past, but in 2001, they were put in jail. And since then, you have many, we do not know exactly how many, but journalists in jail. And press freedom was totally suppressed in this country.
Mm.
In Turkmenistan, there is such a high control too in this country in Central Asia. And in China, one could consider that China sometimes can be opened a little. And even during this coronavirus crisis, a newspaper like Caixin made some revelations. But another aspect of the reality in China is that inside China, media outlets are controlled in a very tightened way, and the control of news and information had an impact globally, because the fact that at the beginning of this crisis, whistleblowers were put in jail, bloggers and journalists were not able to report about what happened. It had very concrete consequences for the Chinese population in the whole China and beyond the borders. And we can now draw a lesson from this, which we already knew at RSF, of course, which is that censorship is not an internal issue. Mm. When you censor journalists in one country, it has an impact in other countries. Mm. And the second thing, which is really worrying, is that China considers, when I say China, of course, the Beijing government considers that it has to export its anti-model of news and of control of news and information. And Beijing is trying to impose control of news and information, a new world media order. This is really worrying, and there has to be a global resistance against this.
Mm. France and United Kingdom are regarded as two of the biggest and strongest democracies. And still, France is on the 34th place and UK on the 35th place on the Press Freedom Index. What is wrong in your country and in UK?
When I spoke about Norway, I said that there are safeguards, for instance, for editorial independence, whatever the type of ownership. In France, we do not have this. There are many conflicts of interest between the interests of owners. A lot of businessmen bought newspapers, not because they believe in public interest information. It can happen, sometimes it happened, but a lot of them did it because it helps to amplify their own influence, and it's a way to defend their own interests. So as compared to Norway, for instance, this is a huge difference. There is a problem in France with the right to have the protection of the sources. There is a law which is not enough, and there was last year a judicial harassment against journalists when journalists made revelations, for instance, about weapons trade with Saudi Arabia. And I spoke that during the demonstrations, and there were huge demonstrations in France last year, there were violences by the demonstrators sometimes, but also by the police with really targeted shootings, not by all the policemen, but by some policemen, and the level was really worrying. And beyond this, there is really an increasing hostility against journalists, which goes far beyond legitimate criticism. Regarding the UK, one of the key topics knowing that the UK has taken a sort of leadership for the defense of media freedoms through the creation of a global coalition for media freedom, led with Canada. The killing of a journalist in Northern Ireland in April last year showed that there are continued threats to journalists covering paramilitaries in Northern Ireland. And there was no apparent progress towards the establishment of a national committee for the safety of journalists. Mm-hmm. And beyond this, there is also the fact that there is this, what we consider as an illegitimate proceeding against Julian Assange, and that do not respect basic rights for people. And Julian Assange is prosecuted. And I was in London for the first hearing, where I met with some PEN Norway people. And really, the more you investigate about the case of Julian Assange, the more you understand that there were a lot of lies about what really happened. Mm. And the more you see that really the US do prosecute him, even if he was a guy who really succeeded to reveal war crimes, and that if Julian Assange would be extradited, deported to the US, it would clearly weaken journalism. And we do not consider Assange himself clearly as a journalist. But what we say clearly is that he clearly brought a contribution, a very crucial contribution to journalism.
Yeah. While we speak, Christophe, the whole world is fighting the pandemic, COVID-19. How does this epidemic affect journalism and freedom of information?
I will answer through an expression, which is the shock doctrine. A lot of governments, of course, in authoritarian regimes, in despotic regimes, mainly, but in some so-called democracies too, have used this shock doctrine, which was used, the title of a book of the famous essayist, Canadian essayist Naomi Klein, which is the use of by governments of psychological shocks for their population. And some governments took the opportunity of the COVID-19 epidemic to impose measures that would have been impossible to impose with this. And you can consider that it's perfectly legitimate to make some exceptions during such an epidemic. This is true. There is even in the international law an exception for freedom of expression based on the right to health. But here, this is not what those governments have done. They do not have used legitimately this exception. What they have done is really taken this opportunity to impose measures for the future. And the most worrying example probably is what happened in Hungary with Orban, imposing a law that at the first look you could consider legitimate, which is prohibiting the circulation of fake news on the COVID-19. But in fact, he imposes sentences up to 5 years for journalists who supposedly circulate false information. In fact, it's a way to target the independent media, as was proven, because those independent media, in fact, their coverage was much better than the one of the media that are close to Orban.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on Hungary and the COVID law, which was passed just before Easter. And Hungary has fallen 16 places on your index since 2018. Is Hungary kind of the bad boy in the European backyard just now?
I would say one of them. This law I spoke about is clearly an Orwellian law. It's close to a sort of coup. What we could, when I say one of them, what happens in Bulgaria is really worrying. What happens in Poland, of course, in unfortunately some other countries. We are in a continent now where the president of the Czech Republic, a successor of Václav Havel, can make a conference with a Kalashnikov, a Moog Kalashnikov, in her hands, saying this is for journalists. And he says it's a joke, but when you look at the behavior, it really threatens journalism. So I think that if Europe wants to develop, and I mean the European Union wants to develop its ideals, it has to be very, very cautious about what happens in those countries, and not only cautious, but to have a huge political will to make it stop. Otherwise, it will kill the ideals of the European Union from inside.
COVID-19 is, in your opinion, no doubt being used as a reason for a clampdown on free critical press, both in Europe and other parts of the world now.
Yes, for a new crackdown on press freedom. And what are the reactions? On one side, we have international organizations that say, and this is good, now trustworthiness of news and information is absolutely crucial. And that's why we believe at Reporters Without Borders, we believe we have this ideal of journalism. It's because journalism is composed by rights and duties. And we consider that if mankind wants to be able to address most important challenges that it faces, trustworthiness of news and information is key. There is no trustworthiness without editorial independence, without methods, without compliance with ethics, without freedom, of course. And but what appears is that some people could consider that the solution is about developing institutional information, the information of international organization, of governments. Sometimes this public communication is of course important, but it cannot be the future. It cannot replace journalism. On the other side, you have digital platforms which are developing communication between human beings, but also are endangering the right to reliable information. So they are endangering freedom of opinion. And we could be in a period, because if we have a look internationally, there is a real danger now that in many areas, there is a sort of extension of journalism.
Yeah,
in South Africa, the most legendary newspaper may disappear in June. In Liberia, because of the COVID-19 crisis, newspapers are not printed anymore. Even in the US, 33,000 people during this crisis were laid off, fell off during this epidemic. And it comes after a decade where half of the staffs in the newspaper were laid off. So there is a real danger. This is not about defending the interests of journalists. This is that if there is no media sustainability, it will clearly endanger this right to information and freedom of opinion.
And in your Freedom Index, you write seriously about at the upcoming decade as a decisive decade regarding press information freedom of journalism, and so on. And you kind of pinpoint 5 special challenges which you sort out as the main challenges to strengthening and to cut back on all temptations from governors and governments to downlock free press. Could you kind of evaluate your 5 trends which you kind of pinpoint as the most critical for the next decade?
What we said when we published the World Press Freedom Index is that there is an economic crisis of media. I just spoke about it, and it is amplified by the COVID-19. There is a democratic crisis, a weakening of democracies, with an increase of polarization, which also contributes to weaken freedom of opinion and journalism. There is a geopolitical crisis with despotic regimes which enter more and more power relations on the basis of rights and try to export their anti-models, as I mentioned. There is a crisis of trust, clearly, toward journalists, toward the guys whose work is to go see what happens, report about it, investigate. And this crisis of the trust of the public is huge, and it is also something that is very, very worrying. So we have to find solutions for this, and I hope we will find time to speak about the solution that we did launch. And finally, there is a technological crisis, which is the fact that we have now a globalized and digitalized communication and information space, the internet, where the safeguards for freedom of opinion are swept away. What I mean is that in this history of democracies, all democracies, with no exception, there were always, beyond the constitutional guarantees regarding freedom of expression, concrete safeguards to implement the Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights through media laws, invisible for the public, but with many virtues, on self-regulation of journalists. It was never perfect, but it helped to promote reliability of news and information, to defend pluralism, to promote a sort of tolerance, to fight extremism. And now we're in a situation where, as there are those national safeguards are swept away, they are not imposed to platforms, we're in a situation where the heads of platforms, private interests in the Silicon Valley, Communist Party interests in China, those interests decide now what are the rules of our communication space. It could be surprising, but they do what our parliaments did in the past. In the past, our parliaments did adopt the laws of our communication space. They did adopt the principles. Now, code is law. The guys who decide the laws are Mark Zuckerberg and Xi Jinping. Can we accept this? If we accepted as consumers to delegate to them the management of the information and communication space. But as citizens, if we do not say anything, if we do not impose democratic safeguards, it will be a huge danger for democracy.
Of these 5 main challenges, a lot of them stem from kind of political, economical, and technological development globally. But the point about crisis in trust to media and to journalism, I would like to ask you, is that kind of more of a internal than external threat and challenge for all people, all media, all journalists who work for the free information? Is it a challenge for ourselves more than from the outside?
It tells, of course, on both. I think that what you hint at in your question is, what does he say about us? And of course, we cannot just say, oh, the public is wrong. They do not understand how serious we are. It would be crazy to react like this. We have to understand why there are so many people, even in democratic countries, that consider that journalists defend some interests and not the interests of large categories of the people, of the population. We have to understand that some people consider that when we, and it happens in many countries, as journalists, we want to say to people what they should think. People do consider that we are not legitimate. So we have to, and really the change of paradigm of the public space is clearly an opportunity, if not an obligation. In the past, media outlets, and even during the American and French revolutions, and since then, media outlets were at a sort of monopoly regarding the flow of information. They have lost this monopoly. I do not judge it. In any case, this is a situation. What can we do with this? What is journalism? We cannot say that now journalists, they just organize the public debate. It's not true. Nobody considers it's true anymore. So what are we? Our opinion is that we are supposed, as journalists, to be trusted third parties for societies. All the people need, whatever their political views, whatever, they need to base their opinions on factual truth. And I would quote the famous American philosopher with German origin, Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt said that freedom of opinion is a farce unless the public debate is based on facts, and this access to facts is concretely guaranteed. And as journalists, that's why if we want to defend our, and to demand when necessary, freedom, independence, rights, etc. In the same time, we have to insist on our duties. Because this is what makes journalism so important, is that between a guy who spreads sponsored contents, advertising, propaganda, and another one who has rights and duties and who really imposes to himself those duties, it's very legitimate to support this and to distinguish this second type of news. So if we want to demand rights, we also have, of course, to base this request and to legitimize it through our duties.
Christophe, we're talking about serious challenges for free information, for free journalism, but we can't end without asking you, are there any positive signs? What makes you positive and hopeful for the future for free information?
I think that we are now at a tipping point. And when we are at a tipping point, there are always opportunities. And I would like to mention that we consider that time has come for structural initiatives to really change the game, to impose rules that are based on democratic ideals in this digital sphere. And that's why we launched, as Reporters Without Borders, the initiative on information democracy, which has led to the signature by 36 governments of an intergovernmental partnership on information democracy. Norway and your Prime Minister personally did support this and then signed the partnership. And it's really a way to move forward regarding what are the rules of this digital sphere. What principle should we impose to platforms? We have even worked on a new option for governance with the creation of the Forum on Information Democracy, with as a founding member, one of the 11 founding members, the Oslo Peace Research Institute. I have to mention this. We have also launched the Journalism Trust Initiative, which is a self-regulation initiative to have platforms, advertisers, regulatory bodies give concrete incentives to quality journalism, to journalism worthy of this name, with the participation also with Norwegian stakeholders, and especially your main TV channel. So we are concretely working to find solutions now. And it would be, in this situation, it should be not be sufficient just to deplore what happens, to protest, to name and shame. We consider that we have we should have a strategy to build a new framework for freedom, for independence, for pluralism of information, and that journalism, of course, has to contribute to this. But it's probably governments in this period have to make an effort to support journalism. But let's think structurally if we want to change the world and to change the game.
And Christophe, that was a very nice intro to my last question, from the home office in Oslo to your home office in Paris, but it's a question regarding all ordinary people in the world. How can ordinary man and woman participate and help strengthening press freedom, journalism freedom in the world?
Sometimes there are some essayists who say that media outlets try to impose their views to the public. In fact, the public has a key role in what media outlets are, what journalism is. And I think that in this period, everybody can criticize this media outlet, criticize the coverage, express your own opinions, etc. But if we want to really change things, we have to go beyond this criticism. Everybody can do this, even journalists do this, of course. And on a political level, consider what do we want to do with the ecosystem, with the information ecosystem? What do we expect from it? What should be our program, our views for the future? What can we build? And what has been done and what is currently done for climate change? At the beginning, people just saw phenomenon, symptoms. We have to address the causes. And this is something that people have to be aware of and then take action, I would say on a political level, but without any orientation, right or left. It's our common debate. It's our common communication. So I think that journalists will not do this by themselves. Lawyers will not do this by themselves. We need the people to develop those ideals.
Thank you very much, Christophe Deloire from Reporters Without Borders, and good luck with your important work further on.
Thank you so much. Thank you.